When I stepped into the spotlight, the roar of the crowd felt like deja vu, because I'd lived this moment before. 5 years ago, I was backstage at a failed launch, trembling as my family laughed at my dream. Tonight, their faces in the front row sent a chill down my spine. Mom's forced pearls, Dad's resigned posture, and Vanessa's calculating smile. Except this time, I wasn't the scared girl they'd abandoned. I'd been given a second chance, one I'd already used to rewrite my fate. As the lights warmed my cheeks and the scent of champagne mingled with ink, I closed my eyes and let a slow, private smile spread across my face. Let the show begin again. 5 minutes, Miss Laurent, the event coordinator said, giving me a thumbs up before disappearing behind the heavy curtain. I glanced at my phone and my stomach dropped. A text message with a photo attached. Congratulations, sweetheart. We always knew you had it in you. Your family is so proud. Can we come backstage to celebrate? The photo showed them standing in the signing line. Mom with her too tight face, Dad with his new gray hair, and Vanessa with that familiar, calculating smile. The family that threw me away like I was nothing. Emma? Is everything okay? Melissa, my publicist, approached with concern in her eyes. You look like you've seen a ghost. I forced my breathing to steady. Just some uninvited guests. Anyone we need security for? She asked, already reaching for her earpiece. No, I said, deleting the message with a swipe of my thumb. Nothing I can't handle. Well, it's showtime. Ready to knock their socks off? I nodded, straightening my shoulders as I walked toward the stage. The crowd erupted into applause as the spotlight hit me, but all I could think about was that night 5 years ago. Dad throwing my duffel bag onto the rain-soaked lawn, Mom standing in the doorway with arms crossed, both of them telling me writers were dreamers who'd never amount to anything. Thank you all for coming tonight, I said into the microphone, my voice steadier than I felt. It means the world to see so many people who connected with invisible ink. As my eyes adjusted to the bright lights, I scanned the crowd. There they were, third row, center. Mom was wearing her pearl necklace, the one she only wore for important appearances. Dad sat rigidly beside her, and Vanessa. My sister's face was a perfect mirror of our mother's smile, all teeth and cold eyes. I'd like to read a passage that's particularly meaningful to me, I said, opening my book to the marked page. The room fell silent as I began to read the story of Amelia, a young woman discovering her power after being abandoned by those who should have loved her most. The words flowed easily. I'd lived them, after all, with just enough fiction to avoid a lawsuit. She stood in the rain, watching the lights go out in the house that was no longer her home, I read, remembering how the cold had seeped through my clothes that night. They thought they were breaking her. Instead, they were setting her free. Camera flashes popped like tiny lightning storms. I could see my family shifting uncomfortably in their seats as I continued reading. The part where Amelia realizes her so-called family never saw her true worth. The part where she decides their approval no longer matters. When I finished with Amelia's declaration of independence, I am not what you made me. I am what I've made of myself. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation, except for 3 people who remained seated, their faces a mixture of recognition and shock. The moderator took the stage beside me, waiting for the applause to die down. I have some exciting news to share, she announced. Emma Laurent's Invisible Ink has just been optioned for a major film adaptation by Paramount Pictures. Another wave of cheers washed over me. I caught my father's wide eyes, my mother's frozen smile, my sister's hand gripping the armrest. 5 years ago, they'd laughed when I said I wanted to be a writer. Now my words would be on screens around the world. The moderator guided me through some questions about my writing process and inspirations. When someone asked about the autobiographical elements in the book, I gave my practiced answer. All fiction contains truth, and all truth requires some fiction to be palatable. Finally, it was time for the signing. I sat at the long table, Melissa hovering nearby as readers lined up with their copies of my book. I loved how Amelia stood up to her family, one woman told me. It helped me find my own voice. Your description of feeling invisible hit home for me, another said. Person after person shared how my words had touched them. My hand began to ache from signing my name hundreds of times. The line inched forward, and suddenly, there they were. Emma, darling, we've missed you so much. My mother's voice carried, deliberately loud enough for others to hear. She reached across the table to grasp my hand, her fingers adorned with the same rings she'd worn the night she'd stood silently by while Dad threw me out. I slipped my hand away, uncapping my pen with deliberate slowness. Name for the inscription? I asked coolly, as if they were strangers. My father's face reddened. Emma, don't be ridiculous. We're your parents. Name for the inscription, I repeated, not looking up. My mother cleared her throat. Well, if you're going to be that way, the Laurent family, please. I wrote to the Laurent family, best wishes, Emma Laurent, in the same impersonal script I'd used for everyone else. No love, no personal message, just my professional signature. Next, please, I called, ignoring their lingering presence. As they walked away, I heard my sister hiss, I told you she'd be difficult. She always was. I signed 3 more books before Nadia appeared, my best friend since college. The one who gave me her couch when I had nowhere else to go. She'd been watching from the side of the room. You okay? She asked quietly, squeezing my shoulder. I nodded, though we both knew it was a lie. Just a few more signatures. I'll wait for you, she promised. 20 minutes later, Melissa declared the signing complete. Nadia and I escaped to the green room, where I finally allowed myself to shake. The taste of copper filled my mouth as I bit my lower lip. Can you believe the nerve of them? Nadia said, pulling a water bottle from the mini fridge and handing it to me. Showing up like they have any right to your success? They want something, I said, taking a sip. They always do. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I was back there, 5 years ago. Rain soaking through my clothes, my laptop tucked under my jacket to keep it dry, walking 8 miles to Nadia's apartment because I couldn't afford a cab. Dad's words ringing in my ears. No daughter of mine is going to waste her life scribbling stories nobody wants to read. Either get a real job or get out. My phone buzzed again. 3 new messages. Mom, darling, please, we just want to talk. We've always believed in you. Dad, your mother is upset. Can we meet for dinner? We can explain everything. Vanessa, don't be petty, Em. Family is family. Nadia peered over my shoulder. Want me to block their numbers for you? I stared at the messages, feeling something shift inside me. For years, I'd dreamed of this moment, them seeing my success, realizing what they'd thrown away. I'd imagined ignoring them completely, cutting them off as they had cut me off. But now that the moment was here, I realized there was a better way. No, I said, a plan beginning to form in my mind. I think it's time they learned what it feels like to be the ones desperately seeking approval. What do you mean? Nadia asked, her eyebrows rising. I smiled for the first time since seeing their message. They want back into my life now that I'm successful? Fine, let them try. Let them beg. Let them think they have a chance. And then they'll learn that some things, once broken, can't be fixed. I put my phone away and stood up. Come on, I promised my fans champagne, and I don't break promises like some people do. Nadia grinned. That's my girl, lead the way, best-selling author. As we walked out to meet my real supporters, I felt lighter. The family that threw me away was now clawing to get back in. And this time, I was the one with all the power. I woke up to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows of my apartment. For a moment, I forgot where I was. The king-size bed with its silky sheets was still new to me. Sometimes I still expected to find myself on Nadia's secondhand couch, the springs digging into my back, a thin blanket barely keeping me warm. Look how far you've come, I whispered to myself, feet sinking into the plush carpet as I made my way to the kitchen. The coffee maker hummed to life. As the rich smell filled the room, a memory hit me like a punch to the gut. Dad standing by our living room fireplace, my printed manuscript pages in his hands. I was 16. What's this garbage? He had asked, not waiting for an answer before tossing page after page into the flames. I'd lunged forward. Dad, stop! I've been working on that for months. Then you've wasted months, he'd said, his face hard. No wonder your grades are slipping. The coffee machine beeped, bringing me back to the present. I poured myself a cup and sat at my marble island, trying to push the memory away. But once the door to the past opens, it's hard to close. Mom's voice echoed in my head. Emma, why can't you be practical like your sister? Vanessa knows what she wants. Accounting is a real career. These stories of yours won't put food on the table. Every dinner was the same. Vanessa's achievements celebrated while my dreams were treated like a disease that needed curing. Remember this one? Vanessa had laughed one night, holding my diary open. Someday my books will be in stores and people will line up to meet me. Dream big, little sis. They had all laughed. Mom, Dad, even Sam, my high school crush who always came for Sunday dinners. I'd grabbed my diary and run upstairs, their laughter following me like a shadow. My phone pinged, pulling me back to the present. An email from my agent. Great news! International rights sold to 23 countries. Call me? I smiled into my coffee cup. 23 countries would read my mediocre scribblings, as Dad had called them. Maybe they'd even reach the accounting firm where Vanessa worked. After breakfast, I opened my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding. I searched for my family online. Dad's company website looked professional, but recent news articles told a different story. Laurent Properties under investigation for fraudulent valuations, read one headline. I clicked through to read about my father's failing business, his desperate attempts to inflate property values to secure bigger loans. Next, I found Vanessa's wedding photos from last year. Her smile looked strained next to her banker husband. Another article mentioned financial troubles for the new groom. Interesting. Mom appeared in charity committee photos, always positioned near the wealthiest donors. I recognized that look, the same one she wore when introducing herself as Mrs. Laurent of the West Side Lawrence. Always climbing, never arriving. My phone rang, unknown number. Hello, I answered cautiously. Emma, it's Sam. Sam Peterson. God, it's been ages. My stomach tightened. Sam from high school. Sam who had sat at our dinner table and laughed at my dreams. Sam who had chosen my family's side when they threw me out. Sam, I kept my voice neutral. This is unexpected. I know. Look, I'm working at the Daily Chronicle now. I'm a features writer, and your book is the talk of the town. I'd love to do an exclusive interview about your journey from unknown writer to literary sensation. His voice was smooth as honey, but I could hear the opportunism underneath. The same Sam who had told me writing was cute, but not a real job, now wanted to use my success for his byline. An interview? I asked innocently. Yes, your story is incredible, from humble beginnings to overnight success. I almost laughed. Humble beginnings? Is that what he called being thrown out of my home? And 5 years of writing while working 3 jobs was hardly overnight. Sure, Sam, I heard myself saying. Let's meet tomorrow at Cafe Luna at 10? Perfect! I'll see you then, Emma. This is going to be great. I hung up, a smile spreading across my face. Sam had no idea he'd just played right into my hands. At noon, I met Nadia for lunch at Bellini's, the kind of restaurant that had a 6-month waiting list unless you were somebody. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. Miss Laurent, we're honored to have you. Your usual table is ready. Nadia raised her eyebrows as we were led to the best spot in the house. Your usual table? Fancy. Don't act so impressed, I laughed. 2 months ago, we were splitting 2-for-1 burgers. Once seated, Nadia leaned forward. So, how are you holding up after last night? Seeing them must have been a shock. It was like seeing ghosts, I admitted, unfolding my napkin. Ghosts who want something. They always want something, Nadia said darkly. Remember how Lily rushed to console them after they threw you out? I remembered all too well. Lily had been my best friend since elementary school. At least I thought she was. Until she stood in my parents' living room, patting my mother's hand. I tried to talk sense into her, Lily had told them. I said, Emma, you can't just abandon college to write stories. But she wouldn't listen. She's throwing her life away on these fantasies. All while knowing I was saving up to finish college on my own terms, taking a gap year to write, not abandoning education altogether. Speaking of the devil, I said to Nadia, Lily has been blowing up my phone since the book hit the bestseller list. Listen to this message from yesterday. Em, I always knew you could do it. No one believed in your talent more than me. We need to catch up. Nadia nearly choked on her water. The audacity. Please tell me you're not answering. I haven't decided yet, I said. Part of me wants to. I stopped mid sentence, my eyes fixed on the restaurant entrance. Nadia turned to look. Is that? Lily and Vanessa, I confirmed, watching my former best friend and my sister scanning the restaurant as if hunting for prey. They're looking for me. How did they know you'd be here? Nadia hissed. Instagram, I realized. I posted about Bellini's last week. Want me to run interference while you escape? I shook my head. I have a better idea. Follow me. We slipped from our table and headed toward the kitchen. I'd done a reading for the owner's book club last month, and the staff welcomed us as we pushed through the swinging doors. Ladies, something wrong with the food? The head chef asked in alarm. The food's perfect, Marco, I assured him. We're just avoiding some unwanted guests. Is it okay if we cut through? Of course, of course. Anything for my favorite author. We made our way through the busy kitchen, the sizzle of grills and shouts of line cooks covering our escape. The back door led to an alley where we burst into laughter. Did you see their faces? Nadia gasped. They looked like hunters who lost their trophy. Come on. I linked my arm through hers. Let's grab hot dogs from the cart instead. The following day, I arrived at my publisher's office for a meeting about my upcoming book tour. It still felt surreal to walk through those glossy doors, my name announced with respect by the receptionist. Good morning, Miss Laurent. They're ready for you in the conference room. Thank you, Diane. As I walked through the open office space, I passed a row of cubicles where editorial assistants and junior staff worked. I almost missed him. Hunched over a manuscript, red pen in hand. Mr. Reynolds. My former boss at the Hungry Spoon, the restaurant where I'd waitressed for 3 years while writing my book at night. The same Mr. Reynolds who had fired me when I asked for 2 days off to finish my manuscript. Reliability is everything in this business, Emma, he'd said. I can't have waitresses who prioritize their hobbies over their real jobs. Now he was here working as a junior copy editor. I'd heard the restaurant had closed during the pandemic. He glanced up as I passed, then did a double take. Coffee sloshed over the edge of his mug, spreading across his desk and onto the manuscript he was editing. Miss Laurent, he sputtered, jumping up and dabbing at the mess with napkins. I didn't realize you were the Emma from my restaurant. You've done well for yourself. I stopped, watching him scramble. The power dynamic had completely reversed, and we both knew it. Better than anyone expected, I replied coolly, continuing toward the conference room where my team awaited. As the door closed behind me, I heard him frantically telling a colleague, I always knew she had talent. I practically mentored her early career. The meeting went well, 10 cities in 3 weeks, all sold out in advance. As I was leaving, my phone rang. Mom. Emma, darling, did you get our flowers? Aren't they beautiful? I froze. What flowers? The arrangement we sent to your apartment. The doorman assured us they'd be delivered right away. I quickened my pace, heading for the elevator. I've been in meetings all day. I haven't been home. Well, you'll see them soon enough. Your father and I would love to take you to dinner tonight. Le Cirque at 8? We have so much to catch up on, darling. Your father has some exciting investment opportunities he'd like to discuss with you. Of course, it always came back to money with them. Investment opportunities? I kept my voice light. Yes. Very promising ventures. We're so proud of your success, Emma. We always knew you had it in you. The same parents who had called my writing a waste of time now wanted to profit from it. I should have been angry, but instead I felt a strange calm. This was almost too perfect. Le Cirque at 8 sounds lovely, I heard myself saying. I'll see you then. I hung up as my car arrived. The driver held the door for me. Home, Miss Laurent? Yes, please. 20 minutes later, I stood in my apartment hallway staring at an enormous flower arrangement blocking my door. Roses, orchids, and lilies spilled from a vase that probably cost more than I used to make in a month. The doorman hurried over. I'm so sorry if they're in your way, Miss Laurent. Your parents were so insistent about surprising their successful daughter. They seemed so proud I couldn't say no. I plucked the card from among the blooms. To our talented daughter, we've always been your biggest fans. Dinner at Le Cirque tonight? Love, Mom and Dad. I handed the flowers to my doorman. These would look lovely in the lobby, don't you think? Are you sure? They're quite expensive. I'm sure, I said, unlocking my door. And Jake, in the future, please don't give my address to anyone without checking with me first. Of course, Miss Laurent, I'm sorry. Inside my apartment, I leaned against the closed door and took a deep breath. Tonight, I would smile and listen to whatever scheme my father had cooked up. I would nod at my mother's fake endearments. I would play the role of the forgiving daughter, but behind my pleasant expression would be the knowledge that this time, I held all the cards. This time, they needed something from me, not the other way around. Investment opportunity, I murmured, a cold smile forming on my lips as I went to choose my outfit for dinner. Just wait until you see what I have in mind. I arrived at Le Cirque 20 minutes late. Not because I couldn't be on time, but because I wanted them to wait. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I followed the host through the restaurant. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a black designer dress that had cost more than Dad's monthly mortgage payment. The price tag was still fresh in my mind because I'd looked up their refinancing details earlier that day. They were already seated at a prime table, fake smiles plastered on their faces. Mom in her pearls, Dad with his expensive watch prominently displayed, and Vanessa in a dress that screamed, "Trying too hard." Their eyes lit up when they saw me, not with love, but with the gleam of people who thought they were about to hit the jackpot. "Emma, darling!" Mom stood and air-kissed both my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. "You look absolutely stunning." Dad rose and awkwardly patted my shoulder, clearly unsure if he should hug me. "You're looking well, sweetheart." "Sorry I'm late," I said, not offering any excuse. "Traffic." As I took my seat, our waiter approached, his eyes widening in recognition. "Miss Laurent, it's such an honor to serve you tonight. I just finished Invisible Ink last week. I couldn't put it down. The scene where Amelia confronts her family at Christmas dinner had me in tears." I smiled genuinely at him. "Thank you, that's very kind." "Our entire staff has read it," he continued enthusiastically. "Would you mind signing our copy in the kitchen when you have a moment?" "I'd be happy to." I could feel my family shifting uncomfortably as the waiter gushed. When he finally took our drink orders and left, Dad cleared his throat. "Well, looks like you're quite the celebrity now." "Your book seems to be everywhere," Mom added, as if this was news to me. "We always knew you had such a creative mind." I sipped my water, saying nothing. The silence stretched until Dad launched into what sounded like a rehearsed speech. "Emma, I know we've had some family misunderstandings in the past. Things were said in the heat of the moment that none of us really meant." "I certainly didn't mean anything by it," Mom jumped in. "We've always supported your creative pursuits. We just worried as parents do." I nodded, still silent, watching Mom's eyes dart nervously to nearby tables where people were whispering and pointing in our direction. Vanessa leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. "Remember how I used to help you with your stories, Em? Reading them and giving feedback? I always said you had talent." I nearly choked on my water. The only feedback Vanessa had ever given was reading my diary entries aloud at dinner for everyone's amusement. "Did you?" I asked pleasantly, finally speaking. "I must have forgotten that." Our drinks arrived, and I gratefully took a long sip of wine. The sharp tang was a welcome counterpoint to the cloying sweetness of their lies. "So," Dad said, raising his glass in a toast, "to family reunions and new beginnings." I clinked my glass against theirs, smiling enigmatically. "To new beginnings." Dinner passed in a similar fashion, them rewriting history while I nodded and made non-committal sounds. By the time dessert menus appeared, I could tell they were growing confident. I'd let them talk without contradiction. In their minds, that meant I believed them. Dad waited until after we'd ordered creme brulee to reveal his true purpose. "Emma, sweetheart, I wanted to discuss a business opportunity with you." "Oh." I kept my face neutral. "Yes. As you may know, the real estate market has been challenging lately. Laurent Properties is facing some temporary cash flow issues." "I've read about that," I said mildly. He looked surprised, but quickly recovered. "Well, those news reports are greatly exaggerated. We're positioned for a strong comeback, but we could use some additional capital right now." "What Dad's trying to say," Vanessa interjected, "is that we think there could be a wonderful partnership opportunity here." "A partnership?" I repeated. Dad nodded eagerly. "Exactly. We thought since you've come into some success with your book, you might want to diversify your income. Invest in something solid, like real estate. Just a small investment, he continued, lowering his voice. Family helping family. 2 million should cover it until the market turns around. You'd be a silent partner, of course, with guaranteed returns. I maintained my pleasant expression, a skill I'd perfected during years of receiving bad reviews on early drafts. What sort of returns are you projecting? Dad brightened, launching into figures and timelines. I asked detailed questions about cash flow, debt service, and pending lawsuits, watching his eyes widen slightly at how much I knew. Mom and Vanessa exchanged triumphant glances, clearly thinking I was falling for it. And Robert, Vanessa's husband, he's a financial advisor, Mom added. He could help manage your new wealth. Creative types aren't usually good with finances, and I'm sure all this money must feel overwhelming. How thoughtful, I said, scraping the last bit of caramelized sugar from my dessert. Actually, I do have a financial team, but I'd be happy to discuss this with them. Why don't we meet at my attorney's office next Tuesday? Say 2 p.m. Your attorney's office? Dad's smile faltered slightly. We could just meet at my office, keep it casual. I prefer to keep business professional, I replied. My attorney handles all my investment opportunities. It's standard practice. Of course, he backpedaled quickly. Tuesday at 2 it is. As we exited the restaurant, several flashes went off. Paparazzi. They'd been tipped off about my dinner, probably by the restaurant staff, and were now capturing my family's exit with me. Dad straightened his posture, Mom touched her hair, and Vanessa stepped closer to me, all of them angling for the best shot. Their smug expressions said it all. They thought they'd successfully worked their way back into my life, and they were already enjoying the reflected fame. Little did they know. The next morning, I called my attorney Jessica and explained everything over breakfast at her office. So they just straight up asked you for $2 million? She shook her head in disbelief. After throwing you out and not speaking to you for 5 years? Yep, I said, spreading jam on my toast. And they rewrote history, claiming they always supported me. What do you want to do? Jessica asked. We could simply decline the investment or we could teach them a lesson, I finished for her. I don't want their ruin, just their awakening. I want them to understand exactly what they did and what it cost. Not just me, but them. I'm listening. I outlined my plan, watching Jessica's smile grow. That's actually brilliant, she said when I finished. Completely legal, but it'll hit them where it hurts. Can you arrange for Helen Chen from Business Weekly to be at the meeting? Just say you're doing a profile on successful women authors diversifying their investments. She doesn't need to know the full story. Consider it done, Jessica said, making notes. And I'll have our financial team prepare a complete analysis of Laurent Properties. From what you've told me, it won't be pretty. After leaving Jessica's office, I called my publisher. Mark, it's Emma. Remember that press release about my second book deal? I'd like to time it for next Tuesday afternoon around 3 p.m. Any particular reason for that specific time? He asked. Just a hunch about maximizing media coverage, I replied. That evening, I drove to my old neighborhood. I parked across the street from the house I'd grown up in, the house I'd been thrown out of on a rainy night 5 years ago. The scent of rain-soaked asphalt brought back the humiliation of that night. My clothes getting soaked as I dragged my duffel bag down the street, my laptop clutched under my jacket to keep it dry. Through the front windows, I could see them moving around inside. Mom watering her plants, Dad sitting in his recliner watching TV. A normal evening for them. While 5 years ago, I'd been figuring out how to survive. The house looked smaller than I remembered. According to the county assessor's website, it was now worth less than what I'd received as an advance for my second book. The one they said I'd never write. I drove away before they could notice me, a strange calm settling over me. Tuesday would be illuminating for all of us. Tuesday arrived bright and clear. I got to Jessica's office early to review everything with the team. At 1:55, the receptionist announced my family's arrival. Show them in, I said. They entered the conference room looking their best. Dad in a new suit, Mom in an expensive dress. Vanessa coordinated with both. Their eyes gleamed with anticipation as they saw the large table with its leather chairs and impressive view of downtown. Then they noticed we weren't alone. Jessica sat beside me with two financial analysts, and at the end of the table, Helen Chen from Business Weekly was setting up her recorder. Emma? Mom's voice held a note of confusion. We thought this would be a private family meeting. This is business, not family, I said pleasantly. My financial team is here to evaluate your investment opportunity, and Miss Chen is doing a profile on successful women authors diversifying their portfolios. Please, have a seat. They sat stiffly, exchanging glances. Jessica took over. Mr. and Mrs. Laurent, Miss Laurent. Emma has briefed us on your proposal for a $2 million investment in Laurent Properties. We've taken the liberty of preparing a thorough analysis. One of the analysts distributed folders with detailed financials. The other connected his laptop to a projector and pulled up a PowerPoint presentation titled Laurent Properties Investment Analysis. What followed was a methodical dismantling of my father's business. The analyst detailed the company's mounting debt, the 3 pending lawsuits from investors alleging fraud, and the tax liens that my father had somehow forgotten to mention at dinner. As you can see from Exhibit C, the analyst continued, the company's debt-to-income ratio makes it essentially insolvent. The property valuations appear to be inflated by approximately 40% across the portfolio. Dad's face had gone from confident to ashen. These figures are taken out of context. If you'd let me explain. We've also noted, the analyst continued as if Dad hadn't spoken, that there have been several unusual cash transfers from the business to personal accounts over the past 2 years, which raises governance concerns. Helen Chen was taking detailed notes. Mom kept glancing at her nervously. Based on our thorough analysis, Jessica concluded, we cannot recommend any investment in Laurent Properties at this time. The risk profile is simply too high, and there are significant legal and financial red flags that would make this an irresponsible use of our clients' assets. The silence in the room was deafening. Dad's face contorted with anger and embarrassment. Mom looked like she might faint. Vanessa was staring at the financial report, her expression shocked as she truly understood their situation for the first time. This is outrageous, Dad finally sputtered. Emma, are you really going to let these people talk about your family's business this way, after everything we've done for you? I kept my voice calm. Everything you've done for me? Like throwing me out on the street in the rain? Like burning my manuscripts? Like mocking my dreams at every turn? That was 5 years ago, Mom pleaded. People make mistakes. Yes, they do, I agreed, and now you have the opportunity to learn from yours. I slid a folder across the table. However, I am prepared to offer you this. Dad snatched it up eagerly, clearly expecting a check despite everything. His face fell as he read the contents. What is this? A financial literacy program? And a modest monthly stipend, I added. Less than minimum wage, but enough to help with basic expenses while you get your affairs in order. The stipend is conditional upon your attendance at the financial literacy classes and financial counseling sessions. This is insulting, he growled, throwing the folder down. No, Dad. Insulting is telling your daughter her dreams are worthless, then crawling back when those dreams make her successful, expecting her to save you from your own bad decisions. I stood, signaling the end of the meeting. The offer stands for 48 hours. After that, it's withdrawn permanently. Emma, Vanessa tried one last time. We're family. You can't just... Family? I interrupted. Family doesn't throw people away when they're inconvenient. Family doesn't show up 5 years later asking for $2 million instead of an apology. What you want isn't family, it's a bailout, and I'm not a bank. Helen Chen approached me as my family gathered their things in stunned silence. Miss Laurent, would you have time for a few follow-up questions for my article? I'm fascinated by how you approach financial decisions as a creative professional. Of course, I replied, loud enough for my family to hear. And I'd be happy to comment on my upcoming second book deal, which is being announced today. As my family shuffled out, I caught Dad looking back at me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. For the first time in 5 years, he was seeing me clearly. Not as the daughter he could control, but as the woman who had outgrown his power. The fallout was spectacular. Helen's article appeared in Business Weekly 2 days later. Best-selling author Emma Laurent declines family business investment after uncovering financial irregularities. The piece was professional and didn't explicitly mention our estrangement, but readers could read between the lines. That same afternoon, my publisher announced my record-breaking second book deal. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Just as social media was buzzing about the Business Weekly article, news of my seven-figure advance hit the headlines. The calls and messages started immediately. Mom left tearful voicemails begging me to stop this public humiliation. Dad alternated between angry tirades and awkward apologies. Vanessa sent long texts explaining how she'd always supported me in her heart and had been too young to understand what was happening when I was thrown out. She was 2 years older than me. The most interesting call came from Robert, Vanessa's husband. He called from an unknown number 3 days after the meeting. "Emma, it's Robert, Vanessa's husband. Look, I know we've never really talked, but I wanted to reach out privately." "What do you want, Robert?" "I want to switch sides," he said bluntly. "Your family is falling apart. Your father is talking about suing you for defamation, which is ridiculous. Your mother is playing the victim to anyone who'll listen. And Vanessa? Well, Vanessa is being Vanessa." "And," I prompted, "and I have information about what they're planning next, about the business, about everything. I can help you stay one step ahead of them." "In exchange for connections," he said immediately. "You know people in publishing now. My finance blog could really take off with the right introductions." I let him talk for another 5 minutes, asking pointed questions that led him to reveal more of his scheme and badmouth his wife and in-laws. The entire time, I was recording the call, perfectly legal in our state, which had one-party consent laws. When I'd heard enough, I thanked him and ended the call. Then I forwarded the recording to Vanessa without comment. An hour later, the screaming match from their apartment was so loud that their neighbors called the police. According to the gossip pages, Robert was now sleeping on a friend's couch, and Vanessa had changed the locks. The first crack in their united front had appeared. A week after the meeting, a letter arrived. Handwritten on my mother's monogrammed stationery, the envelope slightly warped from what appeared to be dried tears. I didn't open it, and instead I placed it in a file folder labeled Research for Novel #2 and turned my attention to the outline of my new book. The past had delivered its lessons. Now I was writing the future, my future, one page at a time.